Good morning, everybody. Auronnj here with another Honkai Star Rail video, and today we're going to talk about the new account experience in Honkai Star Rail. Whether that means you're a new player starting a brand new account for your first time, or a new player returning to the game, but like me, you like to boot up a new account because maybe you just didn't get very far the first time. Maybe you weren't happy with the units that you had, which that is a real problem in this game, and I'll address that later. Or maybe you're just like me, and when you're in the middle of a single player game and you've been gone for a few months, you just like to play through the whole thing again. I'm going to give you the good experiences, the bad experiences, and just tell you what I think about starting Honkai Star Rail in Thanksgiving of 2023 is like. And I want to start with the good. Now, there is a ton of good in this game, and overall, before I even get into the details, I want to say it's always a good time to start Honkai Star Rail if you haven't played it before, or if you're thinking about returning or jumping in or whatever. It's a really good, really polished game. There's a lot to enjoy here, and especially when you first hit the ground in this game, it is really, really polished. Everything from the opening cutscene through the entire first planet of Gerillo 4 is so well done that it makes you feel like you're playing, and I'll use air quotes here, a real RPG. I would say everything from Herta's space station to the first boss, the first real world, big boss at the end of Gerillo 4, feels like you're playing a, again, air quotes, real RPG. The pacing is good. You're given enough materials to level the characters. There's a lot of different guides that pop up, which as a returning player is kind of annoying because you can't skip cutscenes in this game, but as a new player will help guide you through a lot of the systems that you have to deal with. And there are a lot of systems in this game, some of them good, some of them bad, all of them eventually grindy, but not at the beginning. You're given enough resources at the beginning of the game that you need to grind, and you need to kind of know what you're grinding. And when I say grinding, I'm talking about, coming in here, doing your Calyx Goldens for that EXP material, the Calyx Crimsons, these early Calyxes that you get access to. But mostly you're doing those early on in the game to just spend your Trailblazer energy to keep progressing your Trailblazer level so you can keep pushing content. That's the real reason you're grinding early, not because you've hit some huge resource bottleneck, but don't worry, that's coming. I'm talking about the very early game. So in general, I think the early game experience is almost perfect. It's almost perfect. Now, let's switch to a bad part of the early game experience. And to do that, I'm going to jump straight into the banners here. Let me just tell you straight from the go, two things that I really dislike about the banner system as a new account, whether that means new player or returning player in this game. First of all, let's talk about the regular warp, the stellar warp. Now, you do get the discounted pulls at the beginning. You get your first 50 pulls, they're 20% off, and that's great, and you will come out with at least one 5-star, but you don't get to pick what that 5-star is. And at this point in the game, if we look in here, these characters are not game-breakingly great. I think Bronya is still widely considered the best character on here, but it's not somebody where if you allowed a new player to pick and they picked Bronya, oh my gosh, they've broke the game. In fact, I think you ought to be able to pick one of these characters as a new player within those first 50 polls, or some kind of new player banner. I think the new player banner needs completely revamped, just completely redone, and you should end it. Your very last poll on the new player banner should be your ability to select one of these units to play with. You're introduced to these units, especially Himiko, Welt, the members of the Astral Express, and then as you play through Gerillo 4, these three characters, Clara, Japard, and Bronya, you are really given a big time introduction to them. They're main characters in the game, and you get to know them, and you kind of want to use them. Well, for me, Himiko is that character. I've always wanted to use her, and through playing 3 accounts, I have never gotten Himiko, and that's a problem. She's a character that you should just have access to somehow or another, even if it was paid access through some new player paid banner. Giving some access to a select character banner would be a really good thing. I also want to address a problem that the pity system in this game is fine. Like, I understand it's just what Hoyoverse does, and so I'm not complaining about like the soft pity, the 90 hard pity, all of that, the 50-50 system. I mean, that's a whole video in of itself. But what I don't love is that the first 50 pulls you do on the current new player banner do not count towards this additional reward, because some people are probably already typing comments as like, yeah, Auronnj, but once you've done 300 pulls, you get these, you could just pick one of these characters. Right, but do you know how long it's going to take to do 300 pulls unless you are buying and spending your Stellar Jade on the regular banner, which is not a good idea if you care about getting the strongest characters in the game, which tend to be on new player or new character warp event banners. This is where your Stellar Jade should go. So it just takes, like, by the time anybody gets enough tickets to get this in a free-to-play or Dolphin way, I mean, maybe everybody but like Bronya and Japard is going to be so outclassed, and maybe not, but they'll be very old at that point. And so I do think that's the first problem you run into, is the gacha system needs to give you easier access to these characters so you can spend your resources to just get the new characters that you want. Another thing I've run into that I think is a negative about the game is a lot of characters have come out, even in just the few months it's been since the last time I played, and now, like Blade, for example, who had his very own character event warp. There's no way for me to get them now, because you only have access to these like new character event warps and then the standard pool. And if we look at the details of this standard pool, units that were able to be pulled before are not added in here. This is still just Himiko Welt, Bronya, Japard, Clara, Yonking, and Bailu. We have not gotten any of the older banner characters added into the standard pool. So as you're playing the game, if you see somebody like a Blade that you want, Luocha? I don't know. I guess you just have to wait for a rerun. Maybe this is the way that Hoyoverse runs all of their games, and maybe people who like are just Hoyoverse veterans will say this is just the way it is. You kind of have to deal with it. Fine, but I don't like dealing with it. Even if they were just added to like the pool right here instead of just the standard pool characters plus the one new character, some opportunity to maybe possibly pull a character that is not currently on banner and not a part of the standard pool would be nice. And I think as a brand new player, I'd be a little bit confused about how I would get those characters that I see other people, like other content creators and stuff like that, having. So I do think those are problems. I also wrote down that after you're done with Gerillo 4 and you get to the Lufo right here, the Chinese space station area, the grind really begins. And it's not exactly at that point. It might be a little bit before, it might be a little bit after, but the power creep of the mobs happens. The mobs get a lot stronger, and as you level up your account and even the places that you're grinding become stronger, you need to start investing into your characters. You have characters to level, you've got light cones to level, you've got traces to level, you've got relics to level, and the grind really begins. There are now a lot of days when you play that you will kind of just like log in, do your dailies, do your farming, you know, maybe play Simulated Universe a little bit. And I understand that's how gacha games work. There's a lot of days in those games where you don't want to or need to play a lot. But man, does the grind arrive. And there are a lot of different things to grind, and you have very limited energy in which to do so. I also want to take a chance to mention right here that not only do you have limited energy to do so, I think this is an area where the shop in the game lacks a little bit. So if we go to the store, there's not a lot of really good ways to buy energy recharges in this game. Like in the Embers exchange store, there's no fuels in here. If you go to the contract shop, okay, for 880 Stellar Jade, I can get a pack. Well, no, this one doesn't have any. For 240 Stellar Jade, I can get 2 fuels. That's 2 plus 60 stamina recharges. For what? 240 Stellar Jade? 240 Stellar Jade is gonna be what? Like, it's like $3 or $4. Like, I don't know. That doesn't feel like very good access to stamina refreshes. And I think with the amount of grinding that you have the opportunity to do in this game, having more access to stamina refreshes at this point would be nice. It would be nice. And so I feel like as a new player, maybe somebody coming from a gacha game that's older than this one, where stamina is not really a huge problem anymore, that is definitely a hiccup. And it really just arrives. And for this account, it really arrived right at the end of Jarrillo 4. Now, am I complaining about that? Definitely a little bit. In particular, things that I don't think are fun to level are traces. You have to do a lot of very specific grinding, including killing some open world mobs to get resources like the ancient spindle, and you can just spend a little bit too much time for my taste grinding in this game. I think that's really what I'm trying to say right there. Relics. Relics are another thing that this is an early and mid to late game problem, but let's focus on the early game. It's like a returning new player. The relics that you get have a chance of being very good. Like maybe you get on your physical set right here a pair of boots with speed as the main stat, and then some like scaling HP and scaling critical attack. Or maybe you don't, and the only purple pair of physical boots you have are HP. And that's not great for a pair of boots. It's not the worst, I suppose, but it's also just not very good. And since especially in the early and mid game, which is what I'm focusing on in this video, you're not incentivized, or at least it's not very efficient, to spend your grinding on rooms, like grinding rooms, like the Calyx or Caverns of Corrosion, excuse me, where the gear drops, because you're not at a high enough account point in your account's not a high enough level at this point where you're getting those like yellow gear drops. So if you're wasting energy farming these right now, you could use that energy for more efficient things like leveling traces, leveling light cones, finding character trace or character experience materials. Everything else feels more efficient to me than farming these early, and I do feel like that's kind of just awkward. I would like to see, just maybe some better way or cheaper way of acquiring gear. 40 energy per run in a gear room feels a little punishing to me. So that's just something, that's another thing that, like, as a returning new account, that's something I just had a little bit of a problem with. Let's see, 4-star characters. I really want to talk about this one. And this is something, I talked about this with the 5 stars a second ago, but something that has been added to the standard pool has been newer 4-star characters. So 4-star characters that were added to the game since launch. And you can see them right here. Gwyneth, I think I said that right. Luca, Lynx, Yukong. These are newer characters than than March 7th, Herta, Hook, etc. And these were added to the standard pool, and that's cool. But we're now up to the point where you have 4, 8, 12, 16, 17 4-star characters. You are guaranteed 1 4-star character every 10 pulls, and you can get more than that, but the way the pity works for there is every time you hit a 4-star character, within the next 10, you will hit another one, and then it just keeps resetting. There's enough 4-star characters and 4-star light cones, which are included in that little pity, that if you wanted to play a 4-star character, like maybe you wanted to play, let's go look at the list right here. Oh, let's just say maybe you wanted to play a character like, here, I'll pull up my unit roster, because that's a little bit more fun to look at. Maybe you really wanted to play Ting Yun, who is very highly regarded, by the way. Like, tier list wise, as a support, she was good when she was in the game originally. She's good now in the game, but you don't have a very good chance of getting her or a bunch of copies early on. And with as rare as character leveling materials are, if you catch her late and you've already done a lot of investing into a unit like Asta, you might find yourself a little tapped out when it comes to then, okay, I got to go all the way back and start leveling for Ting Yun, and maybe that gets in the way of you leveling like the new 5-star character that you pulled or something like that. So I feel like, again, some kind of select access to 4-star characters, like maybe allowing everybody to go pick their favorite 4-star character at some point, would improve the new player or new account experience in this game. And more than anything, would make the game fun. It would just be some way to add more fun to the game, because we all love polling. I think any gacha player enjoys, at least to some point, the RNG-ness of gachaing, right? It's the gambling part of it, that part of the chemicals in our brain get going, and we like to pull, at least a lot of us do. But if you just pull like 1 copy of Yukong and really what you wanted was Ting Yun, you kind of walk away like, well, I don't know, I guess that's okay. So there we go. I did write that down. And then you just, that's really what I wrote down for like the goods and the bads. Overall, I want to state again that like this is just my experience, but my experience is someone who's played the game now 2.5 times basically. My first 2 accounts I took really far. I'm working on taking this one far as efficiently as I can. And even with all that prior knowledge, I'm still running into some like awkward bottlenecks, and I still find myself wanting launch characters launch characters. Like you know who I wanted to play this time? Do you know a character that I really wanted to play this time? I kind of wanted to play Hook this time. And I randomly pulled Hook on like my third polling session. But at this point, I'd already kind of committed to other characters. And so I don't want to slow my progression down to go back and level Hook. Even though it would help me enjoy the game more, I feel like I would be a little punished in terms of like the days that I'm playing and the speed I want to progress my account. Could I just be patient about it? Sure, I could be patient about it. But could 4-star characters have easier access and maybe considerably cheaper leveling requirements? Yes, they could. And I think I would just push for that just to as a way to like improve fun. Overall, I would give this playthrough a really high rating. I've enjoyed the game again a lot. I'm still enjoying it right now. And the settling into kind of like the grinding routine where I push some content when I can has been fine. And I want everybody to understand that this is like, this should win Mobile Game of the Year. I know the Game Awards are going on. I don't know if they voted. I don't think voting's done on that yet or anything, but this would be my vote for 2023's Game of the Year. And if you're thinking about playing it, I highly recommend it. The pros greatly outweigh the cons. It is a really fun game. The combat system isn't hard to figure out. It's just enjoyable. The break system, the way buffing and stat min maxing work, but those are all their own videos. I just want to talk about what I felt like the new account experience was through the lens of somebody who just did it for the third time. All right, y'all, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.